One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food? He entered the house of God when Abiathar was high priest and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat. And he gave some to his companions." Then he said to them, "The Sabbath was made for humankind, and not humankind for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath." Again he entered the synagogue, and a man was there who had a withered hand. They watched him to see whether he would cure him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Come forward." Then he said to them, "Is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to kill?" But they were silent. He looked around them with anger. He was grieved at their hardness of heart and said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out and immediately conspired with the Herodians against him, how to destroy him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
It was either 3 or 4 weeks ago, with Pride Sunday coming up on this Sunday, that I decided that I can't be the one to give the message this day. And I asked one of our members if they would be willing to come forward and to share their story and message on this Pride Sunday, and was so overjoyed that she said yes. And so Corbin, if you would come forward now and share this word that and your story and how God's faith is still at work and will continue to work your work in God. Come on up. I'm getting out of the way. So please share with us.
In case I haven't met you yet, because I know we've got a lot of new friends here, I want to introduce myself. I'm Corbin, or Corby for short. I'm a cowboy, an outlaw, a believer, a Bible reader, a friend, an abolitionist, a connoisseur of all things country, and a lover of pop divas, and a transgender woman. I'm originally from Oklahoma. Now I'm a graduating undergrad in art theory and practice at Northwestern University. Go Cats. But Emmanuel has been my spiritual hometown for the past year and a half. Emmanuel has fed and watered my heart so well this past year. And so it's such a sweet opportunity to get to share my story and heart with y'all on this special Sunday. One of my favorite things about this church has been chanting the Psalms together every Sunday. Today's Psalm selection from Psalm 139 is one that I've loved hearing my whole life growing up in little Southern Baptist churches. For you yourself created my inmost parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will thank you because I am marvelously made. Your works are wonderful, and I know it well. My body was not hidden from you while I was being made in secret and woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes beheld my limbs, yet unfinished in the womb. All of them were written in your book. My days were fashioned before they came to be. This prayer will always be one of my favorites. As someone who's always been really close to her mother, it speaks to me. The thought of being made intentionally always stops me in my tracks. It's one thing for God to love me, a truth that I've heard my whole life, but it's another for God to know me and to choose to love me still. But as a transgender woman, this passage has been read to me in some troubling ways. Being a transgender woman means that I am a woman, but by choice. I was born into a very loving family of boys down in Oklahoma. I did all the boy things with my brothers, played in the dirt, went fishing at the pond, shot at squirrels, played pretend cowboys on my granny and papa's ranch. But I can remember feeling different than my brothers and other boys by a really pretty young age. People often ask me, how old were you when you realized you were transgender? I suppose the technical answer is 21, but I don't think that's the answer to the question that they're really asking. When I was a little kid, I didn't know what being transgender meant, but I can remember wishing I were a girl as little as 4 years old. I remember when I got to be big enough to go to school, I saw the other girls in my classes and obsessed over the things that they got to wear or that their moms forced them to wear. I loved the way they wrote, the way they talked and sang. Funny enough, it really was The Wizard of Oz for me. My first favorite movie. The softness of Dorothy's face, the beauty of her voice, her friendship, the colors in her shoes and hair that popped when she stepped into Oz. I can remember being 6 years old at Granny and Papa's cattle ranch, leaned up against an old fence post singing, "Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly," just like I had seen Dorothy do. It just felt so truthful to me. Of course, at that very young age, I was taught that my femininity was bad. Don't walk like that. Quit talking like that, and stop twirling your hair. I put it together pretty quickly that my femininity was embarrassing, disgusting, perhaps even sinful. My family and church had made an effort to teach me what homosexuality was as a deviation from God's plan from humanity and that it was a sin. They never talked about transgenderism, but I knew that was certainly the same kind of perversion they were talking about. So I figured that my wish to have been born a girl was just going to be something from childhood that needed to be left behind, like playing pretend on the ranch. For the rest of my childhood, I tried hard to be who I thought everyone wanted me to be, a tall, sharp, conservative Christian man that was smart and well-behaved. I do think I was still me. I reject the notion that I must have been some woman spirit trapped in a male body that wasn't my own. It was still me. I had the same hands, mouth, eyes, feet. I was joyful. I told funny jokes. I made friends easily. And I loved church. Funny enough, it was that spiritual mindedness about me that ended up breaking the bubble. When I got to college, I found myself leaping for anything spiritual I could get my hands on. Maybe it was how bad I miss home, or maybe it was just what I was familiar with. But I know for sure that it was some kind of pull towards the beyond in my chest that I've never been able to shake. In my pursuit, I read the Bible for myself for the first time. I had read it many times before, but this time without my youth pastor or parents on my shoulder. And in it, I found lots of hope. Hope for a world with a restored humanity, free from malice, bondage, greed, war, prisons, borders, famine, deception, suffering. I found critiques of the empire I found myself living in, and tools for revival that I could come to understand. I found that the recipe for the godly connection I had so craved was a broken and wide open heart. God wanted me to approach the altar with complete honesty. I had wanted God to love me, but not to know me. It became inescapable to me that Jesus' constant bending towards freedom was for me too, and not just those around me. I had found that the primary objective here was to be conformed to capital L love and to become a conduit for divine love, to be incarnated. But that we can't do so when our channels are blocked by inauthenticity. I decided to open the tomb that certainly had some kind of life-giving transformation rumbling inside, just under the surface of my heart. I started wearing women's clothes. I can still remember the first time I wore a big, flowy, black and white polka dot skirt in public, and the way it flowed in the wind. I started introducing myself differently, as Corby. I started decorating my face with makeup and taking estrogen pills so that my body would express the womanhood that my genes secretly carried. It felt like wearing my pride in this personal, political, and spiritual transformation on my colorful, poofy sleeves. But that isn't how everybody saw it, of course. I can remember riding the train in Chicago in boots and a big pink eyelet skirt with a big cross necklace hanging down on my flat chest. A woman in the seat across from me, who had been staring at me the whole ride, asked me about my necklace. She said, "Does it actually mean anything to you, or do you just like the way it looks?" She asked me as if she seemed to have already made up her mind. Folks often tap on today's psalm passage, the one that I hold so dear, to throw similar questions at me. They say, "God knit you a certain way in your mother's womb. Don't you think you're tampering with God's creation?" It's actually kind of a common question I get, and I think it's a good one. And I do wish I had been born a girl. I do wish that I had been born a girl. I always have. And at times I've been angry that I wasn't. I've had to come to accept that it just wasn't God's plan. I had to come to accept, that it just wasn't God's plan. Perhaps if I had been born a girl, maybe I wouldn't have turned out to be the same woman I've become. Perhaps things were supposed to go as they did in order to bring me to this moment. And it doesn't really feel like tampering with God's creation. It feels more like God's inviting me into creation. Like the gardener has invited me into his garden to help tend the flowers, to plant new things, to trim what is finished and water what is growing, to put in a vase what is beautiful and to share what is fruitful. The notion that the faith of gays and lesbians and gender non-compliant folks is incompatible with God's work is genuinely such a wacky thought to me, because my transition has completely come from a place of faith. It was a step of faith encouraged to me prayerfully by the Spirit calling me to come out into the light, to wear my coat of many colors, so that the glory of God's work in my heart could shine. It is a proclamation of my God, mysterious, flowing, and multifaceted himself, bringing me from death to life, from sin, selfishness, and shame, into repentance, steadfastness, and his pride in me. Perhaps God has knit me together in womb twice. First, in my mama's womb, giving me the body for this journey, and second, in the capital W womb, in which I have been born again. Not by flesh, but by spirit. And the second womb is also a knitting. A knitting in the womb doesn't imply a singular moment of complete conception. It's lots of little processes of arranging, reorganizing, deprogramming, wiggling, adjusting, pushing, submitting, mourning, and praying. And after a baby comes out into the world for the first time, you're supposed to wrap them up. Maybe I just want to show the world the coat of rainbow colors God has swaddled me in. Lastly, I want to share with y'all what might be considered to be the gay version of Psalm 139, written by the psalmist Dolly Parton. My coat of many colors that my mama made for me, made only from rags, but I wore it so proudly. Although we had no money, I was rich as I could be, in my coat of many colors my mama made for me. So with patches on my breeches and holes in both my shoes, in my coat of many colors I hurried off to school, just to find the others laughing and making fun of me, in my coat of many colors that my mama made for me. And oh, I couldn't understand it, for I felt I was rich, and I told him of the love my mama sewed in every stitch. And I told him of the story mama told me while she sewed, and how my coat of many colors was worth more than all their clothes. But they didn't understand it, and I tried to make them see that one is only poor only if they choose to be. Now I know we had no money, but I was rich as I could be, in my coat of many colors my mama made for me, made just for me.
Thanks again, Corby, for that sharing and sharing your faith as well. I'm just going to add one thing. Last week, I preached on Isaiah, particularly, who's going to go for us? And there's Isaiah responds, "Here am I, send me." And Corby has that tattooed on arm right there, yeah. And so Corby got sent to us to share that word. So thank you so much. And you are marvelously made as well. So reminding us all of that as well. So thank you so much. We'll have a moment of silence now.